Greetings, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I wanted to talk to you about Nirvana, the philosophy, path, and attainability. Nirvana is a profound concept central to Buddhist philosophy and to certain Hindu traditions, representing the ultimate liberation from suffering and the cycle of rebirth known as samsara, often described as a state of perfect peace, enlightenment, and unity with the ultimate reality. Nirvana has intrigued spiritual seekers and philosophers for centuries. This video explores the philosophical underpinnings of Nirvana, its religious context, the steps to achieve it, and whether it is a realistically attainable goal in human life. So let's talk about the philosophical and religious context of Nirvana. From a Buddhist philosophy standpoint, Nirvana is most commonly associated with Buddhism, where it signifies the cessation of dukkha, suffering, and the extinguishing of three poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. In the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, Nirvana is the ultimate goal of spiritual practice, marking freedom from samsara and the end of karmic cycles. We have Theravāda Buddhism, which emphasizes personal attainment of nirvana through disciplined practice, focusing on individual enlightenment, which is arahantship. All right. We also have Mahāyāna Buddhism, which views nirvana as intertwined with compassion, encouraging bodhisattvas to postpone personal nirvana to help others attain it. We have Zen Buddhism, which highlights the realization of nirvana as an intrinsic part of everyday life, accessible through mindfulness and meditation. We have our Hindu traditions as well. In Hinduism, nirvana often parallels the concept of moksha, which is liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth, samsara. Moksha represents union with Brahman, the ultimate reality or universal consciousness. Though different in expression, both traditions view liberation as the highest spiritual attainment. So let's understand nirvana. What is nirvana? The word nirvana derives from the Sanskrit root nir, which means out or away, and vana, meaning blowing. It metaphorically refers to the extinguishing of a flame, symbolizing the quelling of desires, attachments, and ignorance that fuel the cycles of suffering and rebirth. Almost kind of like in the tarot, how you have the fire signs and a lot of the problems that come with because of that fiery energy. So, first, you have freedom from suffering. Nirvana represents the ultimate release from existential suffering inherent in samsara. You also have the unconditioned reality. It transcends all of the dualities and is described as beyond concepts like time, space, and self. You have peace and bliss, which is often characterized as a state of supreme serenity and joy. And you have the non self. Nirvana aligns with the Buddhist doctrine of anatta, which is the non self, negating the illusion of a permanent individual ego. So, what is the path to nirvana? We have the Four Noble Truths. The path to nirvana begins with the understanding that there are four noble truths. The first is dukkha. Life is inherently marked by suffering. The second is samudaya. Suffering arises from craving and attachment. Then we have nirodha. Suffering can cease by overcoming craving. And then we have magga. The Eightfold Path is the way to the cessation of suffering. And no, it's not Make America Great Again. Now we have the Eightfold Path. The Buddha outlined the Eightfold Path as the practical guide to achieving nirvana. It encompasses three core areas: wisdom, which is prajna, ethical conduct, which is sila, and mental discipline, which is samadhi. The right view is understanding reality in the Four Noble Truths. The right intention is cultivating intentions of renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. In terms of ethical conduct, the right speech is speaking truthfully and kindly. The right action is engaging in moral behavior, avoiding harm to others. The right livelihood is pursuing a profession that aligns with ethical principles. What about the mental discipline required? Well, we have the right effort, which is cultivating wholesome qualities and abandoning unwholesome ones. We have right mindfulness, maintaining awareness of thoughts, feelings, and actions. We have the right concentration, developing deep meditative focus to gain further insight. So let's talk more about meditation and mindfulness. Meditation plays a central role in attaining nirvana. Practices such as vipassana, which is insight meditation, and samatha, which is calm abiding meditation, help practitioners quiet the mind, deepen concentration, and cultivate awareness. These practices lead to insights into impermanence, non-self, and the nature of reality, essential for achieving liberation. We also have renunciation and discipline. The path to nirvana requires detachment from worldly desires and disciplined adherence to ethical precepts. Renunciation does not apply or imply asceticism, but a balanced letting go of attachments that hinder spiritual growth. Is nirvana attainable? Historical examples would be the accounts of enlightened beings, such as the Buddha and the Arahants in the Theravāda Buddhism, which provide evidence within the Buddhist tradition that nirvana is in fact attainable. Many practitioners have reportedly reached various stages of enlightenment through dedicated practice. What are the challenges to attainment? First, we have the worldly distractions. Modern life's materialism and distractions make it difficult to maintain the focus and discipline required for spiritual practice. We have the cultural conditioning. Many individuals struggle to overcome deeply ingrained attachments and beliefs. If you have your family and friends constantly telling you things all the time, it's hard to let that go, right? Misconceptions. Nirvana is misunderstood as an abstract concept, making it appear unattainable. Progressive realizations. Nirvana is not necessarily a single, all-encompassing experience, but can be approached in stages. Practitioners often experience moments of clarity and liberation that progressively deepen their understanding. What are our practical considerations? Well, while complete liberation may seem distant, the practices leading towards nirvana, the mindfulness, the ethical conduct, the compassion, offer tangible benefits. These practices improve mental clarity, emotional resilience, and interpersonal harmony, even if ultimate liberation remains elusive. Think about it. What happens when you start to not take things too seriously and you start to realize that being someone's enemy, not forgiving people, that all these things don't solve anything, they don't help anything at all. So mindfulness helps reduce stress, improve focus, cultivate a sense of gratitude, as well as contentment. Acts of compassion are helpful here. Practicing compassion and kindness aligns individuals with the principles of nirvana. These acts not only benefit others, but also foster a sense of interconnectedness and purpose. Spiritual aspiration. The aspiration for nirvana motivates individuals to seek truth and self-improvement. It serves as a guiding principle, encouraging continuous growth and ethical living. In conclusion, nirvana as the ultimate liberation from suffering and samsara holds profound significance in Buddhist and Hindu traditions. While its attainment requires deep discipline, mindfulness, and renunciation, the journey towards nirvana offers practical lessons which are very valuable and transformative as practices. Whether viewed as a realistic goal or an aspirational ideal, nirvana inspires individuals to transcend limitations, embrace compassion, and align with the ultimate reality. By understanding its philosophical foundations and practical steps, seekers can navigate their spiritual path with greater clarity and purpose, striving towards a life of peace, wisdom, and fulfillment. Now, if we think about the idea of this non-self, the idea of just being able to detach, being able to let go of things that we are conditioned to believe, you can see why it's so difficult, even in the face of people who have that light within them, people who have become masters of this. For example, when I created a video, I believe last week, about the collective consciousness, this concept was found alarming by one particular individual who chose to comment on there, and I ended up hiding his comment because it was very negative and unproductive, but I do want to talk about it. is that the individual indicated that they were clearly Christian, that they were a lover of Jesus, and that their mind is their own, their thoughts are their own, that there can be no collective consciousness because Jesus gave them a singular soul, a soul that must not mingle with any other soul. Now, I'm a Christian and I'm a believer in Jesus, and I even engage in Bible study and I minister the Word of God. And the problem we have is when people become monopolistic with their faith to the point that they just want to hear one thing, and anything else, even if it's not necessarily excluded by the faith, they will find ways to make an exclusion out of it. So when you hear the idea that, yes, it seems like science seems to indicate that we have these electromagnetic fields being generated by our brains, and because of that, consciousness may be projected outwards. It's not just limited to our body. And so because of that, that's how we come to realize that there can be a collective conscious, because those vibrations, those waves, those patterns going into the universe can interact with other signals that are being given off by other beings, and that this actually can envelop the earth, and that in a very real way we could transmit information and we could receive information. And so the thought of that seems terrifying, but that's because a person has not reached yet the idea of the non-self, right? In other words, they're suspicious. They're like, I don't want anybody to know about me. I want privacy. And I get that. And you are entitled to privacy. But you have to ask yourself the question at one point when you're really so fixated on it is, why is it so terrible? The idea that we might all be one on some level, that we might all be able to think, as one, that each of us is a child of God, right? God creates us, puts us on the earth. God has unconditional love for each and every one of us, right? We can't forget that because God has unconditional love for each and every one of us, he gives each and every one of us chances to get things right? In other words, to not do evil things, to not kill other people, to not steal from other people, to not rob from other people, to treat other people with kindness and courtesy and respect, right? That which you do unto others, you do unto me, as Christ has often said. And so the Christ consciousness is very valuable in spirituality because it is the recognized teachings of one who is so far advanced that there may not be another one like Christ, but nonetheless, we can all strive for the best. And so, thinking about this, the fact that we're so disturbed about the idea that we might exist as a collective is a mark of not just dogmatic Christianity, but also the Western philosophy of individualism. In other words, that we come in here as competitors. That, yes, on some level, maybe people try to be human to each other, but on a very basic level, people mean to compete with and possibly overtake, exploit, and even destroy other humans. And so when you're coming from that standpoint, that's when you really are not on the path to, becoming the very highest version of yourself, because you're more focused on scarcity, you're more focused on monopoly, you're more focused on the idea that we are in a zero-sum game. And by zero-sum game, we mean that your success is my failure, and your failure is my success. And somehow we must win over each other. We must beat each other. Instead of thinking about the universe as being unlimited, we focus on the scarcity of the material and physical world and use that to make enemies of one another, such that we despise the idea of a collective, because then it would force us to love our fellow human. It would force us to be kind to our fellow human, when in fact we know that there are many of us who really just put on niceties and pretend to unconditionally love others, but really don't. And if you follow Jesus, you would, because that's what Jesus wants us to do. That's not to say that Jesus wants us to be saps or simps or people who don't think, who don't realize, what, there are going to be some people out there who don't have your best interest at heart. But that shouldn't stop you from trying to unconditionally love them. It just means you have to be careful around them. It just means you don't let them take advantage of you. It just means that you must be wary. But being wary doesn't mean you still can't have love. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you're new here, this is a safe space. If you're returning, I love and appreciate you so much, and I'm glad that you're back. In the name of the Most High God, I wish you health, wealth, prosperity, and abundance. Blessings and protection. Signing off. Take care. Have a great day.